The rules of business and society have changed, and Mishcon de Reya stands at the forefront of this change, championing the innovation ecosystem at the heart of Cambridge. Discover what you can do with the law of tomorrow today at mishcon.com.
Welcome to the Cambridge Tech Podcast, talking all things technology from the heart of the UK's tech capital. Here are your hosts, Faye Holland and James Parton.
Hi, I'm Faye.
And I'm James. Well, we've both had very, very busy weeks this week, haven't we? I think you've topped me, though. I think you've had an absolute belter of a week, but we'll get to that in a second. So my week started off with Trinity Bradfield Prize mentoring, which was really lovely to see the teams, all the winners and finalists coming back to the Bradfield. Big shout out to all of our mentors for giving up their time to do that. That was a really fun day and hopefully insightful and helpful for them to grow their ventures. And then friend of the show, Chris George at Growth Hub, came to the centre on
Thursday.
Yeah, with 19 Canadian AI companies. And I did plug the podcast. They may well be listening to this.
Ooh. And on that note, before you go on, I did go and tell Chris George off. I'm like, how can you have 19 startups over from Canada and you haven't invited me? Do you not know that I am the queen of startups? To which he laughed.
I'm going to be checking our download data next week to see how many Canadian downloads we've had. And what else did we get up to? Oh, went to see the new Eagle Labs. So thank you to Paul over there at Barclays for his hospitality. He brought together a few of the workspaces around Cambridge just to figure out how we can collaborate and share information more effectively. And then I went to some event on Thursday night, but I can't quite remember what it was.
Oh, you are cheeky.
No, seriously, like huge congratulations. What a triumph. 21 to watch. A packed Bradfield Centre.
It was standing room.
It was insane. So yeah, no, you must be really pleased.
Yeah, no, it was. It was very good. And yes, I'm very pleased, ever so slightly exhausted, it has to be said. But yeah, I think it was super enjoyable. Loads of new people came. So it's an invitation only, but we had pretty much representation from every investment house around, which is great. Jamie Bignell, who's been part of the program from the very start, he was like, "Oh my goodness, Faye, it's the best ever." And it is really funny because it is, you don't think you can trump it, but you kind of do.
I was going to give Jamie a shout out actually, because we had a chat afterwards and he told me he's listened to every episode that we've ever put out. Oh. So I didn't know whether to thank him or maybe take him to Adam Brooks. Yeah.
Take him to Adam Brooks. That's rude. I'd have just given him a cuddle, whereas you're going to take him to Adam Brooks. Stick with me, Jamie.
But yeah, no, thank you, Jay. We need to get him some kind of recognition for being our longest and most loyal listener, don't we?
You've just made an assumption. Are you saying there's only one? There could be multiple, right?
There's bound to be thousands, right?
Answer on a stamped envelope, please. Again, showing my age. Anyway, we're going to come back. So I'm not going to talk about 21 to watch now more than I already have. But yeah, still buzzing a little bit from it. But you're right. And if it is a competition, because you know me, everything practically is a competition, then yes, of course, I had a busier week than you did. So Tuesday, I went over to Colchester for an Angels at Essex event, where I was MC for a pitch event. It was really good, really interesting companies. Again, very, very different, but really interesting pitches. I managed it in a very militant way, which you would expect of me.
I'm sure.
So the first person who pitched, the alarm, because there was an alarm, the alarm went off at 5 minutes and he looked at me in horror and he's like, "Do I have to stop?" And I looked at him and I went, "Oh, you've got 30 seconds to finish off." And he had 3 more slides, but he got through those 3 slides in 30 seconds, let me tell you. Anyway, it was really good. And I've asked them, so John Stenhouse and the 3 winners, I've asked to come on the podcast. So we'll record them, at some point in time and get that episode out. So that's good. And it's good, again, to get some more coverage across the region. And then on Friday, it was Impact Women's Day. And I was invited to go on a panel with Coel and Burkitt's hosting the event. And actually, it was really good. You know, I did my usual, just say it as it is. We talked about imposter syndrome and what I think about it. And it was, do you know what? It was just really good because there was a variety of opinions there. I don't know why I agreed to do it the day after or the morning after 21 to Watch. But hey, there we go.
Fabulous. So you're looking forward to the weekend?
Yes, of course. I shall be cooking a feast on Sunday while everyone's listening to this podcast anyway. That's going to be my mode of relaxation.
It's Mother's Day. You shouldn't be doing anything.
Oh, I know, but I can control it that way, can't I?
Oh, and happy Mother's Day to all of the mothers out there.
There you go. News. Let's go. Right. So top of the list, those of you in the UK listening, I expect very avidly to the budget this week, will have heard that the UK government has moved forward with plans to establish a development corporation to help realise Cambridge's full potential. So Chancellor Jeremy Hunt said, I'm pleased to announce the next steps for Cambridge to reach its potential to be the world's leading scientific powerhouse. This is like super exciting. There's been loads of initiatives around this. So, it's kind of good that we're starting to get that level of recognition and investment.
Yeah, and it was also really encouraging to see that there's consideration of the inequality issue within the city as well, which we highlighted back in episode 60. And it's also why we feature local charities each month on the podcast as well. Dan Thorpe, CEO of Cambridge Ahead, said that the announcement from government helped to address key water, transport and health aspects of Cambridge's infrastructure, a welcome recognition of the challenges, and a first step which must be built upon.
Definitely watch this space. But again, the Canadian contingent that we're over, this is a place to be for science and technology. So in other news, a consortium of UK aerospace and academic leaders, including Cambridge industrial heavyweight Marshall, have joined forces to establish a 40 million alliance, High Five, to develop a world-leading hydrogen fuel system and supply chain supporting zero-emission aviation. High Five combines the expertise of industry partners Marshall, GKN Aerospace and Parker Meggitt, while specialised R&D will be conducted by the Universities of Manchester, Bath and Cardiff. Also unveiled in the budget this week was news that the consortium will launch with an initial funding of nearly £40 million with an investment of £17 million from industry, matched by £20 million from government.
Cambridge tech entrepreneur Piyush Ahuja has secured funding from Innovate UK to build a learning web. Piyush told Business Weekly that the mission behind the learning web is to be a system of record or an online home for people's complete skill set. This will allow them to unlock dormant value in people's skills, just like Airbnb did with rooms in their homes and Uber did with space in their cars. The company is working with researchers and academics at the University of Cambridge to launch it in a scalable way. And the Digital Education Futures Initiative at the University of Cambridge is scheduled to showcase it later this year.
Scientists at Continuum have successfully demonstrated a novel approach that solves two major hurdles that have been limiting the scalability and commercial viability of quantum computers: the wiring problem and the sorting problem. Traditionally, each qubit requires numerous control signals, making it impractical to scale to larger numbers. Continuum's approach, detailed in a new scientific paper, utilizes a clever combination of a fixed number of analog signals and a single digital input per qubit, significantly minimizing the required control complexity. This method, coupled with a uniquely designed 2D trap chip, enables efficient qubit movement and interaction, overcoming the limitations of traditional linear or looped configurations. Dr. Nash Palamiswamy, Chief Commercial Officer of Continuum, said, "This is a significant milestone, not only for Continuum, but for the entire quantum industry, propelling us into an era of widespread quantum commercialization."
And more good news for the east of England. The number of new technology companies incorporated in the region has jumped by 31% to 3,730 in 2023, which is up from 2,853 in the prior year, which is the largest increase across the whole of the UK. And that's according to analysis by audit, tax and consulting firm RSM UK.
So 2 other updates before we jump into this week's episode. At the end of March, there's an event being organised by Cambridge Science Centre, and I caught up with organiser Andrew Farrer to tell us more.
Would I Cite You? It's a relevant but irreverent science panel show. So it's all about getting interesting people on stage to talk about interesting things and see what the weird and wonderful world of science, technology, engineering, and maths has got going on in it.
Wow. Okay, that's a good introduction. So who are we going to hear from? Who are these really interesting people that we're going to hear from?
Yeah, we're really excited about our lineup this year. So we have James Harkin, who's the head researcher from the BBC's QI TV show, panel show. We have Holly Gabrielle, who's a science YouTuber. Catherine Chapman, who is Director of Science and Entrepreneurship from the Babraham Research Campus. And very excited that Isaac Newton, the renowned physicist, is also joining us. So an absolutely fabulous collection of people from all over science and engineering to talk about all of these crazy things we're going to put to them.
And so how's that going to work? Is it actually a take on the programme Would I Lie to You?
We have taken inspiration from, lots of the classic panel shows. Would I Lie to You? Have I Got News for You? QI. So we will have our two teams. We're going to throw picture rounds at them, fill in the blanks. We're going to have mystery objects. We're going to have demonstrations on stage, and we're going to get them involved in trying to figure out what's going on, lying to each other, maybe telling the truth to each other, who knows, all just to explore all of these crazy things.
Oh, it sounds awesome. I like it. I like it when you do things that are distinctly different. And the other thing is, this is engaging a different audience. So the point is you want to get people interested in STEM. So you're going broad brush, I guess, with the invites?
Absolutely. Yeah, this is really open to absolutely anyone who wants to come along and just really have a bit of a laugh on a Wednesday evening, just before Easter, and just find out some interesting things. It's not about already knowing all of this stuff. It's about watching these people explore it live in front of you.
Yeah, and put a few of them on the spot like Jason. I think that would be great fun. I'll definitely enjoy that one. So when is it and how do people register, Andrew?
So it is Wednesday, the 27th of March. It is at the Junction Theatre at the Cambridge Leisure Park near the Central Station. And people can register by going to the Junction's website, the Junction Cambridge, and searching for Would I Cite You on their What's On list.
Absolutely perfect. And I'll see you there.
Brilliant. We'll see you there. Thanks so much.
Love it. Such a great way to engage a broader audience. And if all goes to plan, we'll also be covering it on the podcast in April.
We certainly will. And finally, we have a new supporter of the podcast. We're delighted to welcome our new sponsor, Mishcon de Reya. Thanks to Louise Border, Chris Keane and Charlie Fletcher for your various contributions to the podcast so far. If, like Mishcon, you'd like to reach the listeners of the podcast, then please do reach out to us and we'd be happy to discuss options with you.
Today's episode is a showcase of this week's 21 to Watch event, so I'm delighted to welcome Faye Holland on to tell us more about it.
Well, thank you, James. As usual, it's always a little bit strange when we talk about activities that we are personally involved in. But what I can honestly say is 21 to Watch is completely recognised in its own right, and it's a key event on the annual calendar. So it's important for our early stage companies, so let's showcase it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always fun interviewing each other as well, isn't it? So who has been on the list before?
So the event's been running since 2019, so it's now in its 6th year. We've had lots of people on it. There's been 1,736 applications, and to date, including this week's, 126 winners. So it really is the who's who of startups in the region, covering pretty much all parts of technology. So who's been on? If I look at the top 21 previous winners, many companies you'll recognise: Unitary, VividQ, Paragraf, Riverlane, Strong BioSciences, Xampla, Sano Genetics. There's loads of them. And to be honest, if you think back to what are the most successful companies over the last 5 years, they'll pretty much have been captured on this list. So it's a really good alumni list. But actually, one thing I would like to mention is the top 21 are the ones that are recognised. Actually, the long list and definitely the short list are also really incredible companies. So just to give you a couple of examples there. Lark Optics, they were on the shortlist this year. They couldn't be on top 21 because they went into stealth mode. So they will probably never appear. They, next year they may not make the list because they may have got too much investment or the criteria has changed. The same happened with Monumo. I was desperate to get them. We talked to Monumo on the podcast as well. I was desperate to get them on the list, but they're in stealth mode. And by the time they actually came out of stealth mode, they'd already raised 20 million. So, there's lots and lots of companies, if you go back through all those numbers, there's so many of them on that list. It really is a cracking list.
Yeah, 1,700 applicants, 126 winners. You must be really proud. That's impressive.
It is. It's a labour of love, it has to be said. But it just, we really feel like our fingers are on the pulse of technology across the whole region. And it's really well respected as well, which is great, but we've worked really hard to get that level of independence from the awards.
Absolutely. So, do you stay in touch with your winners? How, do you track everyone's progress and how they're doing?
Well, as you know, I'm chief stalker of most things. So, of course, it's kind of funny because we feel really invested in these companies because we do a lot of research. We're vetting them as they come onto the list, whether they actually qualify to go on the list in the first place. So, we're out there. When we know them, we like and we share what they do. So we're kind of they're always on our radar. And we like to showcase them. That is the point of the whole campaign in the first place, which is to raise their profile. But we do. So that's kind of the soft way of doing it. We also track them financially. So for us, one of the real criteria for success of 21 to Watch is the fact that they succeed and they get funding and they get all of those things, that they come up to the stage like they did on Thursday and they talk about what they need. Obviously, most of them need funding. So Gemma, who's the engine behind 21 to Watch, she runs a spreadsheet of what each of these companies, only the top 21, not all of them, because that would be completely crazy. But she tracks them, and the top 21 alumni over the 5 years, so 29 to 2023, they have raised £415 million. That doesn't include undisclosed amounts, private acquisitions like with Flusso, and it doesn't include the colossus of CMR Surgical, who won in the first year and would push that total of money raised to well over £1 billion. So it's a pretty significant list cross-sector.
Yeah, and I guess, the publicity and the awareness that they drive through your 21 to Watch is going to be really important for their visibility with investors. It just, very symbiotic, isn't it? Everyone helps each other.
It is. And the investors come to the event. The investors watch the list. It's recognised as the most independent listing. It's not tied to a particular university. So people really do respect it, which is why obviously we take it super seriously and we track on many different levels.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, drum roll. Who were the winners for 2024?
Okay, so as you know, we have the 3 different categories. So let's start with people. The top 7 are Ahmed Waraki, Dr. Alicia Showering, and we're going to hear from Alicia in a moment, Bakal Gupta, Jack Chenzi Gao, Mark Golab, Nadia Razum, and Paolo Bombelli.
Obviously it would take us hours if we talked to all 21 of them. So the details can be found online and on social, obviously using the hashtag 21 to Watch. As you said, let's hear from one of those winners right now.
So our first winner to showcase is Dr. Alicia Showering, who's CEO of BugBiome. Welcome, Alicia.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
So what you're creating, I think, is something that most people will say, thank goodness for that, because everyone will have been bitten, maybe I'm giving it away there, who knows, by it in the past. So tell us a little bit about what you worked on for your PhD and right through now to the creation of BugBiome.
Sure. So I was doing my PhD at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, and there I was really trying to understand why when I go on holiday, I get absolutely attacked by the mosquitoes, whilst my friends hardly got bitten at all. This problem was an issue every time I went away, But I was really interested in what was different between me and these people that didn't get bitten. And this, of course, linked to deadly infectious diseases like malaria. And potentially this could lead to an understanding that could be used for novel disease control. So during the PhD project, I was investigating the skin microbiome. So that's the bacteria, fungi, and viruses that are naturally on our skin. And these microbes produce odour, which can either attract or repel the mosquitoes. So I showed that there was differences in the microbial composition and that there was the potential to move the composition of microbes to reduce how attractive we are to mosquitoes.
And I think it's really interesting, isn't it? Because, like you say, it started with the mosquitoes and your own frustrations, but actually the uses are significant, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was obsessed with mosquitoes, as that's what I spent my PhD focused on. And I was at a school of public health, so it was easy to be excited by the mosquitoes. But I kind of forgotten about all the other insects that are out there, and the fact that other insects that are pests in agriculture, for example, are also carrying deadly diseases. They might not be impacting us, but they lead to crop damage, which still impacts us as humans.
Yeah. So you said at the beginning of it, you were in London, you were studying in London, but actually the reason that we spotted you as well was, well, one of them was that you were part of Accelerate at BugBiome, and I believe you have actually moved up to Cambridge as well.
Yes, so I was part of Accelerate at BugBiome last year. And I was really fortunate to get into that program at a time when I was coming to the end of my PhD. I had lots of these ideas around making longer lasting mosquito repellents using microbes as an active ingredient, which is the core of the tech that we're working on these days. But the opportunity at Accelerate at BugBiome was some business sessions on different things like finance, IP, and meeting one-to-one with a variety of different people, but also the free lab space they offered, which came at a time when I really wanted to prove some of my ideas beyond the end of the PhD.
Yeah, so they were really there to give you that support, I suppose, because you've gone from, like you say, a PhD to then you find yourself with this idea of a company and being CEO of a company. So that's exactly what Accelerate at BugBiome's there for, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that at BugBiome, the being surrounded by other people that are on that entrepreneurial journey, many of which have a lot more experience of been through many of the problems that pop up along the way, has been really beneficial. But both Catherine, that runs the program, and Ruth, the lab manager, have really gone above and beyond to support us at BugBiome.
No, that's great to hear. And so the news keeps going. So last month you announced a pre-seed funding round with Cambridge Angels and Discovery Park Ventures. So you must have been thrilled about that.
Yes, definitely. Great to close that pre-seed and be able to start making more progress towards getting pest protection products on the shelf, which is what we want to do.
Yeah, and the funding was part of a match fund with Innovate UK as well, wasn't it? And that's again about broadening the portfolio. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So we used that investment to match fund an engineering biology grant from Innovate UK. And that is allowing us to prove the core concepts, which I developed based on some of the work in my PhD. So from there, I was interested in these microbes and mosquitoes. But in this new project, we are applying this to agriculture. So we're looking at the skin microbiome of the crops, so the phytosphere, the impact on aphids. So very excited that that project is underway, and hopefully we'll have some exciting data there in the next few months.
Brilliant. So you found yourself your top 21 2024 for 21 to watch, which is great news for you. But this isn't your first award. So I mentioned that we'd seen you and the concept of BugBiome coming through BugBiome. But we also recognise you from the Innovate UK Young Innovators Award. Was that 2022?
22, 23, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So you were already a little bit on our radar then. And since then, you've won a pitching competition at Giant Health Tech. You're a finalist in the startup category at the Bio Now Awards. You've just graduated. So there's an awful lot going on. What does winning an award and getting this kind of external validation actually mean to you?
The additional exposure from winning awards like this is always beneficial. You never know who might come across your story, and you might be able to help them, or they might be able to help you. Those connections are always beneficial. But from the entrepreneurial young innovators, for example, it was really great to meet other people who are in the same position as me, starting their own businesses, getting things off the ground, and having those people that are just as mad as you to bounce off of, and sharing the highs and the lows, I suppose.
Excellent. And an element of madness always helps, right?
Definitely.
That's good. It's great to talk to you, Alicia. Congratulations again, and all the very best in the coming months.
Thank you very much.
So, Faye, you've talked in the past about the correlation and causation of being on the list, but Alicia is a real example of that. You would have had no assurance when she was put on the list that she was going to receive the funding, but then when it happens, demonstrating you have a real knack for spotting those likely success stories.
Absolutely.
And for listeners who don't know too much about 21 to Watch, you split list into people, companies, and things. Why is that?
Yeah, it was just another one of those random faith things, I think. Seriously, people start companies at all different stages. So the people tend to be super early stage. They may not even have a company name. They may still be in the labs, but they've got an idea that we think has got the potential to be great. The companies are ones like Glyconics, New Quantum, that we are kind of going, these look like they've got potential to really go places. And then the things are somewhere in the middle between the people and the companies. So they might not be completely formed yet as a company. You know, they might not have lots of employees, for example, but they're generating a specific product or technology that's driving something in a new space. So, for example, InfoSense was in this category last year. So we kind of feel it gives lots of coverage for those different stages of business.
And just a kind of newbie question. Can a winner appear in multiple years? Can you win again in different categories, or is it a one and done kind of deal?
Yeah, so actually Catherine Elton, who's the CEO of QKind, spoke on Thursday, and she was a personal winner in 1 year, and then 2 years later the company came in and won. So that can happen. I think we've had 1 year where someone has won both in the people category and the company category, but to be honest, they're quite rare. And this year we were really, really strict that people, because there's a lot of momentum behind being on the 21 to Watch list, so people resubmit. But if they're not doing anything new or they've not really changed, then we didn't put them back on. So it kind of reduces, we don't want, what's the point of having awards if the same people win all the time? That's why we set it up in the first place, because we got bored of the same people winning all the awards. So the idea is you want to try and get the fresh blood into 21 to Watch every year.
No, that's really, really interesting. Okay, so let's move on then to the list of companies.
Okay, so this year's top 21 companies are Beyond Math, Cambridge Vision Technology, CellXL, Expression Edits, Kuano, Remedium Energy, and Vector Bioscience.
Well, as you know, I'm a big fan of Beyond Math. We had Alan and Darren on episode 57 for those listeners that pay attention. And I think it actually might even now be our best performing episode ever.
Is it? I know it was definitely at the top, so that's good.
Yeah, I think the last time I checked it was. So you're not alone in your admiration of Beyond Math.
Good. They'll be pleased to hear that, I'm sure.
It's also interesting to see some variety in locations in that category as well.
Yeah, so for obvious reasons, much of the list is really dominated by Cambridge. As we say on the podcast, it is the UK Centre of Science and Innovation. But we also have nominations across the entire east of England. This year we had a lot from Norwich, and that was mostly as a result of a partnership that we'd set up with Soraya Jones at Norwich Research Park and UEA. And Suffolk was also represented on the list. Sadly, we didn't get much from Essex this year. We had a lot from Essex last year. This year it was a little bit quieter. And we did have, and I was so ecstatic about this one, we had a nomination from Hertfordshire, which we typically don't get. And it was a really great company who actually made the shortlist, and it was a company called Green Jets. But literally, as the shortlist was done, they then moved out of region. So they no longer qualified. So really gutted, but that's definitely a company for someone else to be watching too.
How far west does qualify then? Does my wonderful Bedfordshire qualify?
No.
Oh.
No, I'm afraid not. It goes, so it is I guess the government boundary of the east of England.
Okay. As usual, Bedfordshire left out. Okay.
Sorry. I have been asked many times if I'd franchise and do 21 to watch in different locations, but the amount of work it takes to do just the one, I think that's enough for now.
But you've also interviewed one of the companies too.
Yes, I did. So I'm delighted to introduce you to Mohammad Saghafifar, co-founder and CEO of Remedium Energy, who's a winner in the company category. So Omid, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit, if you may, about Remedium Energy. What is it that you do?
So we are trying to develop a process called carbon capture, which basically separating CO2 from exhaust gases of several manufacturing plants like cement and steel producers, and sort of like cleanse them and let them, and then after that you would be able to release the exhaust gas into the atmosphere while the CO2 has been removed. And then either you store the CO2 in underground reservoir or convert it into a value-added product.
Okay, so let's try and delve a little bit deeper into that. And I actually remember in the very first year of 21 to Watch in 2019, there was a company that was looking at carbon capture then who won. So it's great to have this back on the list again this year. So ultimately, this is like hugely important. I read somewhere that we emitted 51 billion tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere last year, and we're supposed to be reaching net zero in a matter of decades. So this is huge. So what is it that you're doing that's different? And secondly, what do you see as the biggest challenges that, to allow you to succeed?
Right. So I think one problem with carbon capture, because obviously, we're not going to reduce 51 billion ton of CO2 only using carbon capture. There are a mix of technology, several solutions that can be used to do so. But one of the importance of such a technology is specifically for decarbonizing cement and steel, because CO2 is part of their manufacturing process. So we cannot replace it with renewable energy. So we estimate about 6 billion ton of CO2 by 2050 is being sort of like stop using carbon capture. So that's the capacity that we are targeting for. But the current carbon capture capacity is only 43 megaton, and it has to be 6 gigaton or billion ton. So we are even less than 1,000th of the capacity we need to be by 2050. And the problem, what we believe is that it costs a lot of money for companies to capture their CO2. It costs between $50 to $200 to capture 1 ton of CO2. So companies right now do not have any financial incentive to deploy carbon capture. And therefore, there should be a sort of financial incentive for companies to do so. And that's where our solutions are becoming relevant. We are basically trying to build carbon capture into another value stream, which is electricity storage. Basically, we are developing grid-scale electricity storage solutions that capture CO2 as a byproduct. That means that while companies capture the CO2, they can also use the variation in the price of electricity to generate profit. So that creates this financial incentive for those industries to deploy carbon capture.
And that surely has to make it much more attractive for them, because those order of magnitudes that you just talked about are just insurmountable. They're huge, aren't they? So actually, you've got it's coming up with what the benefit is. And do you think that the benefit relies on the company itself, or do you expect that there needs to be some kind of regulation around this as well?
Well, I expect that eventually we will have some sort of a carbon tax or carbon credit introduced everywhere that would create this incentive for companies to capture the CO2 to reduce their emissions. But obviously, currently, right now, at least in the Europe and the UK, this is very limited. So that's why we're thinking such a financial benefit for these industries encourage them to deploy such a technology.
Yeah. Okay. And so back to Remedium Energy, you're at patent pending stage for the technology, and I know that there are different markets that you can approach as well. So what's next for you?
Basically, we have filed 2 patents on 2 aspects of the technology. One is the process itself, and the second one is sorbents that my co-founder developed during his PhD. And so the next step is basically for us to currently raising pre-seed funding to build a fully functional proof of concept, because one challenges with such a technologies is that they are very high capex technology. So even a smaller scale one that we want to build pilot plant in 5 years, we need a good amount of money. But to get there, we want to first build a smaller one in the lab and test everything and then move forward.
Yeah, so you're looking at raising funding, which kind of gets me onto my last question, which, as the listeners will know, I'm extraordinarily nosy, so I ask really random questions. So we first met during Impulse last year. You were also a semi-finalist in the Chris Abel postdoc competition. So you've done these things that have obviously helped you to develop the proposition. But you've moved ultimately, like many of our startups coming out of Cambridge, you're moving from academia to being a co-founder and CEO of a startup. So how's that been for you?
Well, it has been a very interesting journey. I remember myself about 2 years ago when with my co-founder, we started thinking about spinning out and starting a startup. And our mindset, the first time we talked with the TTO office and comparing what we said and how we presented ourselves and how we presented our idea at the time and how we're doing it right now, it's completely different. I think it's a different mindset. One good experience that I had was that after I finished my PhD, I started working for a startup for 2 years and saw that sort of change in the mindset that was significantly different. With academia, you look at every aspect of problem and technology and try to understand it, so sort of like trying to figure out why this is happening. Whereas I think with the development of a business, it's still interesting to understand why this is happening, but you have a goal, you have a target, you want to do something, you want to develop something. So you're more interested into developing a technology using these things rather than understanding the full science behind it. I always have, when I want to switch between the two mindsets, I always have 2 people, 2 mentors in my life, my PhD supervisor and sort of like my line manager at the startup, and how different they would describe a problem and a solution to this. And sort of like every time I'm in an academic position, I would think what my PhD supervisor would have done. And whenever I'm in a more entrepreneurship environment, I think what was my line manager would do. And that's how I would basically manage the differences between the 2 environments.
Yeah, that's a really good tactic, isn't it? And I'm sure that there's lots of people in the ecosystem that are there that can help you and answer questions as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, basically, I've been participating in several programs over the last year. And again, this sort of like the progress I had and talking to the mentors and the people and pitching the ideas and their inputs has been very helpful to sort of shape what we're presenting right now.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much for your time, Omid, and congratulations again on your win and representing the company category.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
So far we've heard from a biotech and a clean tech. I'm really intrigued to hear who you spoke to for the thing category.
So representing the thing category, I'm excited to introduce Tenyks, a super interesting company that's protecting the world
from the misuse of AI with a platform for developers. So to tell us more, here is Dmitry Khazhdan, CTO of Tenyks. Dmitry, welcome to the podcast. Please introduce yourself and tell everyone what it is that you do.
Thank you so much for having me. My name is Dmitry Khazhdan. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Tenyks. And at Tenyks, we are protecting the world from the Terminator. And in particular, we're building a platform that allows machine learning engineers to build more reliable vision systems for AI.
And so the problem is that this doesn't exist already?
Correct. So the problem is that the vision domain is a very challenging domain to build safety into due to the magnitude of the data. So you would typically require hours and hours of video to train your AI, and maintaining the quality and representativity of this data is incredibly challenging. So there are currently no tools sophisticated enough to ensure this quality.
Okay, so that's quite surprising, isn't it? Because if you think about the amount of video that is out there, and you hear about it in the news all the time about misuse and people being, the personalities being taken over and everything, you'd expect that someone was doing this. So is this like really completely unique, or are you starting to find other people starting to do something similar?
Yes, so we have been around for over 5 years now, and there are definitely other companies in the space who are doing this as well, which I think is great to see. It's great to see that in the past few years, the industry is beginning to realize this problem of data quality for computer vision. So there are several other companies out there doing this with us. In our case, our competitive advantage, I would say, is that we have been doing this as part of our PhDs at the University of Cambridge with my co-founder. So we are making sure that we bring all of our know-how from our PhDs and research into our platform as well.
Let's come on to the actual commercial offering in a moment. But you just said you've been going for 5 years. You are actually one of the oldest companies on the top 21 list this year, which is kind of bizarre considering you're only 5 years old. But it means that you're already on that development path. You are probably one of the more advanced companies on the list this year. So you've gone through quite a lot of the stages that others are going to be going through, like, for example, building a team, getting a commercial offering to market. So how has that been for you? Because like you said, you're academics and you've co-founders of a business and you're having to do all these things.
Yeah, so 5 years in the startup world is very, very old, very old. I agree. It took us quite some time. So we have started with just the three of us. So it was myself, our CEO, and our founding engineer, kind of all Cambridge graduates, and mostly on a research basis. Since then, we have raised our seed round and we have grown the team to, I think, around 15 to 16 people now in the company. So the company has definitely grown. We have built out the product. If you check out our website, we actually have a lot of information on what the product is. We even have a free trial of the product. So the product has matured, and we are, in the past year, closing quite a lot of customers. So we are kind of at a good stage of really just scaling the revenue. And we're actually planning to fundraise again later this year.
Okay, that's really exciting. So before we get on to the next steps, I kind of just want to share with the listeners a little bit about the ethos of Tenyks as well. So what I really enjoy about you as a company is you've still got that vibrancy that I guess the three of you started with. And I'm just going to quote something off the website, and it says, "At Tenyks, we set our goals ridiculously high and stick together to go further than anything previously imaginable. We start small, work hard, and deliver fast," which I just think is absolutely brilliant. And that whole theme comes through everything that you do. So that ethos, I kind of love. Is there anything that you can say about why you've injected that into the business?
Absolutely, yes. So this was something that we have shared as the founding team. So myself, our CEO Botti, and our founding engineer Maliaki, we have all really believed in this. The challenging part was actually cultivating it as you grow the team. And I think that the way we've achieved this is we have understood that when it comes to hiring new people, we decided that even if it takes us a little bit longer, we would not sacrifice on the shared beliefs of these people. So when it comes to hiring, we have comparatively longer hiring cycles, more grilling tests, that maybe even can to some people may look like an overkill, but to us, we really believe that by the time you are done with the process, we really believe that you would be a fantastic fit and you would share these values. And that's why I can confidently say that out of the 16 people that are now in the company, I have full faith that everybody shares these values as well.
Yeah, and consistency is key. So I do love that. And before we started recording, I put my foot in it because I kind of squinted at the logo and I went, is that logo, is it a picture of pants on fire? Which obviously I've got completely wrong.
Yes, so I think it's a great interpretation. And as you've pointed out earlier, I think it still fits in with the ethos. I believe that if we are too slow with AI data quality validation, then we will be experiencing pants on fire, worldwide, really. The logo itself resembles more a helmet because it's intended to convey the idea that we will be defending and protecting the world against the misuse of AI.
No, brilliant. Love it. All these things are open to interpretation, aren't they, as I've just proved. Thank you so much for your time. I guess my final question to you is going to be, what's next? You've talked about you're going to be raising funding again later on this year, very much focused on revenue generation. So what's your ask to the audience, if you could ask something?
Oh, that's a great question. So in terms of what's next for us, an incredibly exciting development is the introduction of generative AI for things like video. So if you have not seen things like the Sora demo by OpenAI, I encourage you to check it out. It's really impressive stuff. And it's also very good for us because we can actually apply our technology to generative AI videos as well. So what we're planning to do this year is really to explore applications of our platform towards video-based generative AI systems, which is a completely new technology. Again, nobody really understands how to understand it or quality control it. So this is a problem we are really looking forward to. And of course, as I might have mentioned earlier, we're planning to scale up partially by hiring more people and also by actually raising more funding in the remainder of this year.
That's brilliant. Well, exciting times ahead for you. So thank you very much for coming on the podcast today and congratulations on your win again.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So as well as the diversity of geography, it's also really nice to see the different stages that all of these companies are in. Tenyks obviously at the revenue generation stage and right through to those that are just starting out on their journey.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. Different industries, different locations, different stages, which is great.
Who else was on the thing list to make the last 7?
Joining Tenyks was Antler Bio, Autopicker, Heartfelt Technologies, Mollion, which was previously known as Mostly, who you may remember from a previous episode, Verinogen, and William Oak Diagnostics.
Yeah, I recognise a few names there, actually. Autopicker is a CFT company as well, and we talked to Owen recently, actually, in episode 75. And we also spoke to Seamus and Oriane from Heartfelt Technologies back in episode 62. So 2 more questions. First, how does the judging happen?
The judging is done independently each year. So as I said earlier on, every application that comes in is vetted against set criteria. So we have 5 categories that we vet them on, which includes things like where are they based, how much have they raised, how long have they been going, and really crucially, are they doing something innovative? As a result of that first pass, they then get put on the long list and they're ranked. So the ones with the highest score then get whittled down to a short list. And that short list gets prejudged by some of our sponsors and partners. So this year, Rachel Bradley at Pennington's Manchester Cooper and Jamie Bignell of HSBC did that prejudging. So after they'd finished with the short list, it then gets judged externally. So this year we had John Bradford, managing partner of Dynamo Ventures, Fiona Nielsen, who'd previously been on the list the first year herself as a company. She's a serial entrepreneur in life sciences and mentors and advises science and technology startups. And Nitin Patel made up the third of the judges. He's a mentor at Cambridge Judge Business School and founded his own impact company. So those 3 judges this year, they all judge in isolation. There's none of this sitting down at the event or sitting down in advance of the event. They all judge in isolation. The scores are tallied. Whoever is numerically at the top gets top 21.
and the judges actually only find out who's won on the night. So who they judge for may not actually be the person who gets the award, which means that in the evening we get a really slick, high impact awards event.
That's really interesting, actually. So let me just hold my second question a second and just jump back on. You mentioned a couple of brands there. You obviously have sponsors as part of 21 to Watch. It's really well supported, isn't it?
It is, and the point of the thing is that the whole campaign is to wash its own face. We want to do it because it's the right thing to do to help these companies to raise the profile. So we're thrilled and honoured and somewhat humbled actually sometimes, because we have this year 24 sponsors and partners involved. Literally, we were going to press and we had someone else coming in going, actually, we want to be part of this. So it's really good. And the thing that people don't see is that all those sponsors and partners, they all offer something to the winners. And if you add up everything that they're offered, it amounts to around £20,000 worth of prizes. So it might be advice or workshops or space, meeting space, office space, those types of things. But it's really incredible. And it's because, those companies believe in the innovation ecosystem that we've got here, and they want to get at the start of that pipeline, and they come to us because they know that we have a bit of a big list.
You certainly do have a lot of lists. So jumping back to my final question then, what's your key takeaway from this year's competition?
Yeah, okay. And before I do that, were you having a dig at me about lists then?
No.
I don't know. I just heard something resonated there about I have a lot of lists. Yeah, okay. So key takeaway from this year. Each year, I kind of think it's impossible to trump the previous year, but it always happens. And it might be because it's different types of companies or different types of people. But I think the fact that our alumni raised 110 million last year alone, not to mention everything that's going on in the rest of the world, I think is just unbelievable. And, I'm proud of the fact that actually we're good at spotting these companies as they come through. It's not always perfect, but actually it's pretty good. And it really is a genuine thrill to actually see these companies and the people behind them progress. Some of them stay with the company, some of them go on and do other things. But, you kind of feel like we've built a little bit of a mini family with the alumni. But I think the other thing that's really impactful is just how clever people are and how, we continue to strive to do things that are better for others. So, this year we've had people working on accurate detection of Alzheimer's. We've been looking at carbon capture and battery technologies to improving our food system. This is stuff that really matters. So honestly, I just think, that's the takeaway: ingenuity.
I mean, it's funny, isn't it? I mean, we both do quite similar things, at least for part of our day jobs. You've got 21 to Watch. I do Trinity Bradfield Prize. We both collaborate on the podcast. And like you say, it never ceases to amaze me. Just the innovation, the creativity, the kind of real world, changing ideas that are coming out of this region. It really is inspirational. And, I think I certainly feel privileged meeting these companies, supporting these companies, talking about these companies. I'm sure you do too. I love this part of what we do.
Yeah, and I've got no doubt that quite a few of these are going to be appearing in future episodes as well, which is why we'll never ever run out of a list of people to interview on the podcast. So yeah, I think that's it. That's our overview of 21 to Watch for everyone who wasn't able to be there in the room. Thank you, James, for asking me lots of questions.
My pleasure.
And that's it then for this week's episode. Tune in during the rest of the month, the rest of March, when we've got a couple of really interesting episodes lined up for you.
Today's show was produced by Carl Homer of Cambridge TV and supported by our media partner, Business Weekly. The Cambridge Tech Podcast is available on all major podcast platforms and on cambridgetechpodcast.com. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please give it a 5-star review. It will really help others discover the show. Supercomputing is becoming an essential tool of scientific and medical research. Operating award-winning data centres, KO Data is proud to host Cambridge One, the UK's most powerful supercomputer accelerating health research. With computing power and space available and excellent connectivity to Cambridge and the cloud, KO Data is ideally placed to support advanced computing organisations of all shapes and sizes. Get in touch today at kodata.com/contact.